Guilty Crown started airing a few years back in the fall season when at least everyone was watching the first episode. People were more or less won over by the series' magnificent music and design. It had the potential to be one of the best anime of that year, but as the story dragged on, it's easy to find yourself asking what exactly is going on. It had character designs and art being done by the well-known artist Reduce, music from Supercell of Vocaloid fame, writers from Code Geass, directors of Death Note, and production being done by Production IG. Unfortunately though, even with such a stellar team, it seems that Guilty Crown couldn't quite meet up to the high expectations that people had of it. The primary weakness was the story and characters, and while these aspects admittedly did have their good moments, unfortunately those moments were short-lived. The story is set in the near future when Japan was recovering from a near-apocalyptic event which took place 10 years ago, known as Last Christmas. Tokyo was the site of a deadly virus outbreak that turned people into crystals, and in order to prevent this from spreading, a group of countries occupies Japan and places those infected under quarantine. Enraged at the treatment of the Japanese people by the occupying forces and the inaction of the Japanese government, a rebel group called the Undertakers rises up against them. Caught in the midst of a battle between the rebels and occupying forces, Shu suddenly finds himself bestowed with the experimental secret weapon, the power of the Voids. Guilty Crown is a science fiction action anime themed towards post-apocalyptic with bits of mecha, school and romance. The story is somewhat cliche as it follows the weak character becoming a hero storyline. Throughout the first part or up to episode 12, the anime will progress a little slow in the storyline as it mainly introduces other characters and development, organizations, plot setups, showcasing how badass Voids are, or just covering details of the story to make more sense. The second part of the story from episode 13 to the end picks up more faster. But without a doubt, the biggest flaw to this series would have to be its story. Guilty Crown gets exciting if you prefer series with plot twist after plot twist. Plot twists do have a tendency to rack up tension, which could be a benefit for an action-heavy series. However, plot twists also can disturb character development and properly paced storytelling, which became clearly evident when personalities would drastically change in less than an episode. Is the story confusing? Not really. Boring? Not at all. The story has its moments that just plays out well in all different angles and possibilities that keeps you curious to what might happen next. When it comes to the characters in this show, Hiroyuki Yoshino, the author of both Code Geass and Guilty Crown, somewhat made the two animes similar enough that could be easily recognized by the familiar audience, hence this anime being too hyped for some to the highly praised Code Geass. However, there are noticeable differences between areas within both these animes, and focusing on the lead character Shu. Shu was gifted with void powers. Along the story, he panics but was able to survive. This shows something about the point of realism that is being addressed here. Shu's ability depended on him as a person with a strong heart if he wished to use his abilities effectively. He was literally using his friends' lives as a weapon, and that knowledge will later bite him on the ass later on. A lot of the characters also lacked consistency. There was so much backstabbing going on between so many characters. Soon throughout the series, you would start to love and hate each character due to the decisions made, and which we will know why in the end. However, it brings good variety of different character personalities which fit perfectly to the respective characters. The animations are very smooth and clean. The visuals were still impressive in each setting. Guilty Crown will constantly stay smooth and detailed while rarely having lazy animations. If you manage to look at the backgrounds and such, you'll be surprised how detailed some things are. But of course, it's easy to get sidetracked by awesome fights and explosions. One of the reasons that heavily made me want to watch this series as a whole was its composition. It easily captivates you, and the timing and selection is perfect for nearly every scene. Having the music makes a huge difference on certain moments, as sometimes it can get really emotional or send chills. I recommend getting the OST and listening to the tracks because they are outstanding, and the opening and ending are well done by the popular J-pop group called Supercell. Today's review was Guilty Crown. I acknowledge this final judgment with a score of 7.92 out of 10.